So contrary to what you may believe, vulnerability is a trait that literally makes you more magnetic than any other trait. It is literally the most attractive trait. Now, chances are your idea of what the word vulnerability means is actually different from what I'm about to explain in this video. Now, I'm going to explain what vulnerability is in detail, and I will break it down into 3 main points, each point based on the point that's after it, and the third point is actually the most important point, or the main point. So I'm going to go over those, as well as relatable examples for you to drive my point home as much as possible. Let's begin. Have you ever met someone and then you felt like you instantly connected with them after just talking for just a little bit of time? You felt that immediately there's this realness coming out of them. They're authentic. They're making you comfortable. You feel like you've known them forever. They carry themselves in a way that's very authentic, and at the same time, something about them makes you very comfortable. You could trust them. You kind of feel like this person's super trustworthy, even though there's no proof to support that. On the other hand, compare that with someone whom the first time you met them, immediately you got this weird vibe off of them. You felt like you felt awkward because they felt awkward. They didn't really feel loose about themselves. You kind of felt like they were hiding something, or they were holding back from expressing their true selves. And you just felt like you were super uncomfortable. You felt like you were spiritually and mentally drained just after talking for them for just literally a few minutes. You felt like they were too agreeable to you, and they were just agreeing for the sake of being agreeing, not just being free and expressing themselves authentically for how they really feel. Now, the issue between these two people is the issue of authenticity. Now, bear with me for just a second. When I say authenticity, I'm not saying that the first person is real and the second person's fake, but there is a missing component of realness coming from the second person. The second person feels afraid, feels like they're holding something back, and to you, you get the feeling that there's some realness missing from them. They're hiding something from you. Now, this doesn't mean that they're fake necessarily, but what it does mean is that they're not really fully comfortable being themselves around you. It's kind of like you have a sixth sense that can detect that this person isn't fully comfortable being themselves. And the reason for that is actually the second point, which is releasing control. I remember when I was 20 years old, when I was literally out on my first date ever. Haven't been out on a single date before this. And so, long story short, there was this girl who I was interested in, and I got her number. And eventually she seemed really interested in me and everything was fine. And before this, I was actually following this dating coach, who, by the way, is a really good dating coach. And I read his book. I'm not going to say who he is. But the feeling I got after reading the book was that everything should be micromanaged and controlled. Like, you just got to control everything. When you should respond to her, when you shouldn't respond to her, how long you should take to set up a date. After you get her number, when do you call? I just felt like there was too much control. But nonetheless, I followed that advice, and I ended up going out on her on my very first date ever, which surprisingly went really well, despite it being my first date. And so, long story short, when we were there together on the date, everything was fine. And even after the date, everything was fine. She got home, she really liked the date, and she texted me. But then my behavior after that date was based on fear, not based on how I actually am, because of what this dating coach said to do in his program. And so we ended up going out a second time, which was also a good date, but it wasn't as good as the first date. And so she would eventually text me things like, "Are you normally a good texter? Are you this? Are you that? Have you ever heard of this show? Do you watch this show?" And I would just respond with such bland answers because I thought that was the right thing to do. I would literally just respond with no. When she said, "Are you a good texter?" And like, "Oh, have you heard of so-and-so show?" I just say no. Because naturally, I wanted to respond with enthusiasm because that's how I naturally felt. Instead, I wanted to micromanage all these logistics and just control them in this little imaginary ball I had to control every single different thing. And what that ended up leading to was her eventually ghosting me. At the time, I was really pissed off that she ghosted me, but I didn't understand why until years later. The whole reason why is because I was trying to control everything, control all these logistics. But instead, had I released control and just let things happen as they should happen, I wouldn't have suffered like that, and she would have probably wanted to see me more and more because she really seemed interested in me, especially at first. This girl seemed like a more vulnerable type of girl. She's more natural. Whatever's inside is coming out. Me, on the other hand, I was a bit stiff emotionally. I wasn't loose emotionally like I am right now. And that's exactly why she ended up ghosting me by text. And I probably deserved that, to be honest. She felt like something was missing, and that something was my vulnerability. She felt like this guy's great, he's kind of charming, he looks good, the dates were great, but something is missing. He's not vulnerable, he's not fully there. And me not being vulnerable because I was trying to control everything, right? This tight imaginary bubble or ball that we have. The whole reason for that is what brings me to the third point, which is outcome independence. Now, in the previous example of the second point that I literally just gave, I wasn't outcome independent. I was actually outcome dependent. Because in the back of my mind, the whole reason why I was trying to control everything was because my mind was focused on getting this girl to like me to the point of wanting to commit to me. Obviously because of ignorance. This was the whole reason I wasn't able to be vulnerable in the first place. And this is why this third point is actually the most important one. Because my need for controlling an outcome messed everything up. When you need something to work out, what happens? You end up trying to control everything. When you end up trying to control everything, what does that do to your authenticity? You end up not being authentic. You end up speaking or reacting in certain ways that leaves the other person questioning everything. Because here's what I was trying to do. For example, I'd set up dates, right? And I would do pretty good on these dates, even though those were literally my first 2 dates ever at the age of 20. And I was too focused on the result, AKA getting this girl to feel a certain way about me, instead of focusing on how can I make her enjoy a good time without attachment to a specific result. You see that difference? That is a huge difference, by the way, when it comes to any dating coach or any dating advice you could hear. The main thing you should focus on is giving this girl a good time and giving her a kick-ass time, a kick-ass experience without attaching a specific outcome in your mind to that thing. And when you're attached to an outcome, you end up automatically operating from a needy perspective, a needy standpoint. And when you're in that needy standpoint and in that needy vibration, people could just pick up on your vibes without even you saying a goddamn word. People could feel it. They could feel that there's some resistance coming from you towards them. They feel like there's this missing component of you. They feel like somehow this isn't how it should be, right? They go on a date with you and then they're like, I don't know, just this is a great guy and all, this is a great girl and all, but something just feels missing. Many times that's your need to achieve a desired outcome and control everything and be inauthentic. You see how the 3 points are tied? All of them are related to one another, but the main one that starts is actually attachment to a specific result. And the only remedy to this is to understand that no matter what you do, no matter how cool you are, how charismatic you are, how sociable you are, how much value you have to offer, not everyone is going to like you. You can't just control how everyone feels about you. Sure, to an extent, you could control the level of a good experience that they can have with you by giving them a kick-ass time and planning a date well or doing this or doing that, but you still can't micromanage and micro-control every goddamn thing to get them or make them want to like you in a certain way. It doesn't work that way. There's too much resistance, there's too much blockage that just doesn't allow it to flow freely. This goes for dating and relationships, this goes for social situations, and this also goes for potential clients if you're in business. And I believe the best way to get to that point is just by building experience. Because when you build experience, you're going to be confident within yourself. And that confidence is going to allow you to be okay with people not liking you, with being okay with being rejected. So to tie all the 3 main points together, let me go over some general examples in order to give you some relatability. I want you to think of any charismatic person that comes to your mind. Whoever they are, I assure you that they have the 3 main components of vulnerability down pat. They're authentic, because they have no need for control, because they release control, right? Because they're outcome independent. Charismatic people, generally speaking, are very carefree. They're very relatable. They're not always sociable, but they usually are. People just feel this authenticity coming out of them. All this is because they have no attachment to an outcome. They're so confident and secure within themselves, and because they're so confident and comfortable being themselves, they don't care what people think about them. That's what makes them outcome independent, which is the start of vulnerability. More than likely, you've heard of the saying that goes, nice guys finish last. You see, it's not that nice guys, meaning kind guys, finish last. What it means is this: the nice guy typically is very approval seeking. He doesn't feel secure within himself, so he's always trying to seek approval from women. He's trying to get women to like him. He's trying to do this, he's trying to do that. So he doesn't have the 3 main components of vulnerability down packed. He is too outcome dependent, therefore he can't release control. Therefore he's what? Not authentic. And being not authentic is super unattractive. It is such a turnoff. Compare that with a typical bad boy. The typical bad boy isn't liked because he's bad, right? He's liked because he has outcome independence, which causes him to release control instead of to control everything, which makes him what? More authentic. And when he's more authentic like that, he doesn't care what anyone else thinks of him. Because of what? Because of his confidence. And confidence is actually the most thing that's attractive to women. Women are super attracted to confidence. The nice guy, on the other hand, is not like that at all. He can't be confident because he's way too outcome dependent. He's too busy thinking, oh, I want this girl to like me. I want that girl to like me. What do? I don't know what to do. Just think about it this way. I'm sure if you've been to a party or any social situation, social gathering, there's two types of guys. One guy is kind of in the corner. He's kind of hiding from everyone. He has an awkward smile going on. Talking to him feels like it's forced and awkward and just not natural. As opposed to the other guy who's super confident when you talk to him. He's charismatic. He's really authentic. You feel like the words that are coming out of his mouth are what he's actually feeling. His body language, everything about him is comfortable. He has open body language like this when he's talking to you, as opposed to the other guy, the first guy. He's typically very uncomfortable and he's like, he has his arms crossed like this. Maybe if he's in the corner with like a drink or something like that, he has it like right in front of his chest to kind of block this area, because when this area is blocked, it makes us feel safe. But when it's open, that's what makes us feel threatened. But again, what is vulnerability? Vulnerability is being open to potentially being attacked, quote unquote attacked, right? Or disliked. The second guy, he's completely okay with not being liked. But the first guy, he can't do that. He's too shy. So with all the information I just gave you, I do have a piece of advice for you. Whenever you're listening to a specific dating coach or you're receiving dating advice from whoever, be cautious of this. Be cautious of the things they're telling you. If it's too focused on outcome dependence, aka too focused on getting this girl, too focused on getting your ex back, too focused on this, too focused on that, that's immediately going to make you non-vulnerable. Which means what? Which means you're not authentic, which means you're not releasing control. You're trying to control too much, which means you're going to be projecting too much resistance to the other person, and the other person is going to be very intuitive, because us by nature, us human creatures, we're very intuitive by nature, especially women. They're going to pick up on that and they're going to be like, something is wrong. There's too much resistance going on here, and I don't want that. So these dating coaches, some of them, although very well intentioned, can get you to do something where you're trying to control these micro logistics instead of being you. Now here's what's very important. When I say being you, I'm not saying just to be a loser, to be lazy, to not be strategic, to not know what you're doing, to not be confident. I'm not saying that. Because you might sit here and be like, oh, I feel like I want to text this girl 6 times a day and call her 6 times a day because that's what I feel, right? That's what I should do. First of all, if you just met a girl, truthfully speaking, if you're really confident within yourself, you're not going to have those feelings that you want to do that. The reason why you want to call her 6 times a day or text her these many times a day is because you feel insecure. You're doing this because of fear of loss. If you were really confident, you'd be like, you know what? Let me give this some time to see how this girl actually is. Because you can't really fall for someone that quickly. You literally just met them. You don't know anything about them. But your mind starts messing with you because of the fear of loss, which again gets you to do what? To control everything. And because you have that fear of loss, you can't let go. You can't be outcome independent because of fear, not necessarily because this person's super special. But when you are outcome independent, you let go of control and you're authentic, right? The way you feel about this woman will then be coming from a place of, I like this woman for her. This woman's actually, she's genuine, she's sweet, she's this, she's that, she's whatever. Instead of it coming from a non-genuine place, which is what? Which is fear that you're gonna lose her. I wanna latch onto her. I wanna latch onto her. What does that create? That creates resistance, which repels the woman. You see, it's all a cycle where each point relates to the point before. So my advice to you is to work on becoming as confident as you possibly can by upping everything and controlling everything that you possibly can within yourself, not within the other person. Then and only then will you reach a level of outcome independence because of your confidence and of course because of your experience. This is what's going to open up the door for you, that's going to catapult your confidence and catapult everything, and in general make you a much better person, a much more attractive person. So if that's something that you're interested in, I want you to click on the video right now that's on the screen because it will benefit you a lot. And I will see you in the next one. Peace.